My name is Kimberly Giddings from the Big Smith News Watch, and today I'm here with the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union Ms. Coretta McDonald. We'll be speaking on the current situations whereby parents are attacking teachers for the week. Hi, Ms. Coretta McDonald. It's a pleasure to have you here today to speak on this topic.
Good afternoon to you, and it's a pleasure for me being here and for you inviting me, because I'm not sure how many persons want to have Coretta McDonald on their program, but that's okay. And let me say Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you too, Miss. I wish you all the best for this year.
Thank you. I've prayed for lots of energies for this year because I recognize that the challenges are much more than I expected them to be and much more than last year. But so far I've been refilled and I have lots of energies and I can go on and on.
I'm sure you will get over it, get over these challenges.
Yep.
So we'll be speaking on for the past 2 days, the teachers that were attacked by parents. What are your thoughts and views on the situation as the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union?
Oh, well, it's not 2 days, it's less than 12 hours that we would have had 2 teachers being assaulted by parents. The thing is, let me say, we have to start reorienting our parents. That's one. Secondly, we have too many young parents, young adults who have become parents, and they themselves have not been developed. And so to bring up their children now, they don't have the prerequisite skills to groom their children. And so because of that double factor, the slightest thing, rather than coming to talk about issues, we resort to abuse out, a fight, a cuss out, as if that's the only way of resolving our issues. And so that's why I said we have to start reorienting our parents. We do this very often at our Parent Teachers Association meetings when we have them. But sometimes the parents who you want to have at those meetings are not the parents who would come to those meetings. But we have to, as a union, as the Ministry of Education, education, social services, I think they all have to come to a point where we understand what is happening in our society, where we have quite a lot of single parent mothers who are not only single parent in the sense that they have to be at home to look after their children, but they have to go out there and earn. And so while they're out there earning, the children are left at home, nobody to attend to them in some instances. And that's where we have that total breakdown, because you don't have the time to spend with your children. That's the first one. And then secondly, like I said, you yourself have not been developed to that extent where you can deal with various issues, sit down, analyze them, and decide where you're going to go in terms of being able to attack the issues. And so we have these blowouts. But it's a sad state. And I want to say that assault on parents is not a new thing, but the intensity of it has grown. And it is now even more, I don't want to say dangerous, but it has gone to another level where violence is the thing of the day. Assaulting teachers is totally wrong. We have zero tolerance for that. I have zero tolerance for that. Because the thing is, when you assault teachers, you are putting your child at even more risk. Because you know what happens? Your child suffers in the long run. Because every teacher, depending on the level that child is at, every teacher would now be walking on thin ice when they have to deal with your child. Because they know, you see this mother? She likes to abuse and she likes to fight. So that child now, unless the child is a child who can go out there and work on their own without much assistance, that child, in many instances, would be left to fend for himself or herself. If you finish the work, you finish the work. If you don't finish the work, too bad for you. If you could read, and so here it is, we are creating many more problems in our society. And we've got to fix it. And we've got to get to the point where we have to return to the drawing table and fix the problem.
That is true. How does the Guyana Teachers Union plan on fixing these problems? I think social media is also negative impact for young children, especially these children in primary school. How do you guys plan on fixing the situation?
As a union, we have been advocating over the years. And let me go to St. Agnes, and then I'll go to Graham's Hall, and then I'll remind of some of the other issues that we would have had. St. Agnes, the union, St. Angela, sorry. I'm saying St. Agnes because we had St. Agnes a while ago. But St. Angela's, we have been advocating over the years for us to have access teachers, or what you can call assistant teachers, or teachers who are just on hand. If the regular teacher is absent, then you have a teacher to fit into that class. And so we've been saying that in schools we should have runner teachers, so that at any one time classes are not going to be left unattended. What happened at Angela's is that we had this young teacher manning 3 classes. And so she was supervising one class here. She's attached to this other class with her teacher there, the teacher who was there with her. And then another teacher wasn't there, and so she had to be running 1, 2, 3. And so it might have been during one of those run-ins that she had there, moving from one class to another class, that she had some kind of interaction with a little boy. Of course, like any other teacher would do, if a child misbehaves, then you find the appropriate method of dealing with them in terms of whatever disciplinary measure you're going to administer. And so that is what happened there on Monday, I think Monday. That happened on Monday. And so the parent turned up on Thursday. But the thing is, we have been advocating for runner teachers. And if we were to have runner teachers in the schools, then this teacher would not have had to have been
in that situation
at 2 other classes.
Yeah.
And the situation might never have occurred.
True.
And so we're still going to continue to advocate to have these access teachers in our schools, because you and I can't predict what is going to happen now, what will happen tomorrow, what would happen the next day to a fixed teacher for a class. And so as long as we have access teachers, then we should put them there in the classes. The other thing is that we've signed an agreement with the government of Guyana, and I'm not saying PPP, APN, UAFC, I'm saying the government of Guyana, where each level in our schools, and that's from the nursery to the secondary school, there is a quota for teacher to pupil. So in the lower classes, we have 15 to a teacher. That's in the nurseries. In the grades 1 and 2, it's the same thing. In the grades 3 and 4, we have 25 to a teacher. In the secondary schools, it's the same thing, 25 to 30 to a teacher. But if you look around our primary schools, you're going to see 40, 42, 44, 38, all sorts of numbers. And you have one teacher manning all of those classrooms. And so sometimes you understand the kind of frustration that takes over teachers sometimes, and when you have to deal with 41 children at their own different levels. These are the issues that we need to fix first if we were to regularize what is happening on the outskirts of our school system or the education system. And that these issues will continue to happen because, one, the ministry for some, in my view, and in the union's view too, the ministry to some extent, they have been emboldening our parents to behave the way they behave. And I'm saying that because just recently we had the QC saga, and there was no comment from the minister, the chief education officer, no senior officer, nobody you heard any comment from. And you know, sometimes you get the feeling that because of your so-called status, you are shielded. Now, if we had, and I'm not talking here about the Rose Hall issue and the St. Agnes issue and the Winford Gardens and so on issue yet. I'm talking here about what happened recently at QC. If we had come down and condemned that, then we would not have had what we saw happening at Graham's Hall and what we saw happening at Angela's just within not even 2 days, 12 hours of each other. The thing is, we have to be consistent with what we do. Secondly, the law. It doesn't give you much leverage. And so there's a $5,000 and there's a $8,000. And you know, I remember 4 years ago, a parent assaulted a teacher at Rose Hall Primary. and he ended up in front of a magistrate. He was charged, and the fine was $8,000. He paid that, and then he was malicious enough to walk past this school and to say there very loudly, I pay $8,000 for slapping you, I could slap you again and pay another $8,000. And so we have to talk constitution reform. If parents are to feel the full blunt of their ignorance, then the law has got to come in place. But we must have constitution reform to change what's happening there so that parents can be dealt with condignly.
Yeah.
The other thing is, if the ministry were to take an approach like this, if you misbehave in the secondary school, in the primary school or secondary school, depending on the nature of it, if you were to expel them from the public schools and allow the parents to feel what it feels like to go and pay in the private schools, they wouldn't do the kind of foolishness that they do.
That's
because true. You don't hear parents going to the private schools,
and
cussing out teachers, beating up on teachers, and abusing up anywhere, because they understand that their monies have to spend there, but they can come to the public schools and do whatever they feel like doing. And you know what happens? Oh, you transfer them from one school to another school, or you say to the teacher, okay, we are going to remove the child from this teacher's class, and you put them into another teacher's class. And that, in my mind, gives parents the response to do what they're doing. Okay. Mind you, I am not saying that our teachers are angels, and teachers don't sometimes misbehave and go overboard. But the thing is, we have in the education system standard operational procedures that you as a parent, you're expected to follow. If you go to the school, if you have a grievance and you go to the school and your child, you're not satisfied with whatever the explanation is, or if in your mind you have not been given enough satisfaction, then you can go the other level to the departments of education. And you can air your grievance there and allow for an investigation to be had, rather than coming into the schools and behave in unkind of manner.
It's true. In collaboration, do you guys plan on collaborating with the Ministry of Education to solve the problem? Are you going to come together?
Well, you know, we've always held the Ministry of Education as our partner. And we have been seeking out at every opportunity to talk to the ministry on issues. As a matter of fact, let me say to you, teachers have not been, the Teachers Union is not satisfied with the manner with which the President announced an all across the board increase. While we would have submitted, our proposal was submitted and resubmitted, and we call. We're not satisfied with that, but that did not stop us from engaging the ministry on other levels. As a matter of fact, just yesterday we were there with the Ministry of Education, another unit we were there with, and we were discussing the what qualifications are needed for different positions or different status or TSC scales within the Ministry of Education. We've looked at the appraisal form. So the GTU has always been in contact with the ministry. We've always been collaborating with them. We've always been in discussions with them. Even when we fall out on one level, we're at another level where we're collaborating, because we feel that partnership is important. And to resolve issues and to make our system a better one, we have to talk. We have to disagree. We have to agree and come to a point where we can set the standards that we need to move the education system.
Have you guys come up with an idea on how you plan to solve the situation, though, the ministry?
Well, yes, we've said to them, one, stop transferring the problem from one school to another, get them out of the public system. And if you make 4 or 5 parents the example, by one, allowing the police to do what they have to do, secondly, get the parents' pocket to feel, then parents would know how to operate. Outside of that, we continue to engage parents at our PTA meetings. And we've got to stop allowing our PTA meetings to just be head teacher and teachers interacting with parents. We've got to have our education officers going out there more often at these PTA meetings and doing not a whole big long lecture that you do at the university or the Cyril Potter College of Education because you're going to give them a degree or something or some certificate, but engage them on relevant issues. Let them understand the consequences of actions that are not acceptable. Let them understand how we can resolve issues rather than coming in a rage. Wait until you're cooled down and then you can come in to talk. Don't go to talk to the person who you would have had the issue with. Go to the person who's in charge. Outside of that, we need to have public awareness campaigns where we have on our television screens little messages. Go out into the villages. Talk to parents, have open meetings, talk to the parents, let the community understand that, hey, gone are the days when we are talking about, I didn't leave anybody to watch my child. We must let them understand that the community should be more involved in rearing our children. The churches should be more involved in what we do. Because way back 25, 30 years ago, we used to have more involvement from the community and the churches. I'm not sure what has happened, but everybody taking a back seat now, and this is what we're having. The children are out of order, parents are more out of order, parents coming in to fight teachers, children fighting teachers, and so it has to stop at one point. But we have to be serious and consistent with what we do.
I was aware that you was with the trainee teacher who was attacked by the parent yesterday at St. Angela's. Can you give an update on that teacher? How is she doing medically?
Like everything else, the GTU is the legal representative for the teachers. And so even if the teacher is wrong, we have to go out there and support them. But it doesn't mean that we condone the behaviors of teachers. But yesterday, the teacher was highly traumatized. From our investigations yesterday, this issue happened on Monday where the parent is alleging that the teacher flogged the child. And maybe some splint of a ruler or something got into the child's hand. And so the parent, maybe, I don't know, maybe what happened at Graham's Hall kind of gave her some feathers, and so she thought that after Thursday she should come and perform there. And so the parent went to the school. She engaged 2 teachers, and if you look at it, you recognize that the parent came there with the intention of creating confusion from the way she was dressed. And so she waited at the gate for the teacher, and she assaulted the teacher at the gate. So what we saw on the video that is circulating, that is not the first episode of what transpired. It started at the gate where she assaulted the teacher. The teacher's wig came off. The teacher had scratches on her face, and then her colleagues, after they recognized what was happening, the guard pulled the teacher in the compound, and they kind of hurried the teacher up the stairway. That did not stop the parent, because other teachers came and they started saying to her, "You're wrong, you should not have done this." And I think because of the exchanges of words, she was more infuriated, and that's when she stormed the gate, hit the guard down, and then you saw her barging into the compound and going up this stairway. But I mean, it's not a nice thing to say, but I think I have to say it. Teachers have got to start being able to represent themselves. Maybe we might have to start having some training classes to teach teachers how to do self-defense, because we cannot continue to allow these kinds of things to happen. And if I'm to step way back, I can tell you that we have 2 teachers, one at St. Agnes, well, she's no longer at St. Agnes, and one at Winford Gardens, who have scars on their faces that they will have to live with for the rest of their lives. They got that from parents. As a matter of fact, the teacher from Winford Gardens, which would have been about 3-4 years ago, that teacher's issue was a case of mistaken identity. But the teacher ended up suffering. And you know what? Because the person who assaulted the teacher, her husband is, quote unquote, a senior officer in the Guyana Defense Force. And so because they know people and they could call up the sergeant and they could call up somebody, that matter died not a natural death, but what we expected to come out of that, it did not come out. And so that's why I keep saying, we have to be consistent. And even if it's Tom Jones, you put the pressure on Tom Jones, so that little Harry Paul at the bottom there would understand that if Tom Jones get a buy, not me, I can't try it, because the same thing is going to be meted out to me. And so in consistency, you'll see changes in behavior. And we cannot stop today and expect to start next week, because when you allow that span, things will continue to happen. So we have to be consistent and always on the ball with advocating no violence against teachers, no violence against peers, no violence against persons in the community, respect for women, respect for each other. We've got to keep advocating those so that persons the message would stick, and persons would think maybe 3 or 4 times before they react to situations.
That's true. Concerning, moving on to the Christchurch situation, I'm not sure if you'll have much to say about that, but we know that CXC is coming up, and also just recently in September, new children, Form 1 students, were placed into Christchurch. What will the Guyana Teachers Union do in terms of the CSEC students? It's coming close to exam time. What is going to happen?
Christchurch's event, it's just unfortunate. But I would want to advocate at this time that the personnel who went there, as a matter of fact, last Wednesday, if you remember, there was a fire at Christchurch.
Yes.
They reported that it was from the lab, and we had the school closed, I learned last evening, for 2 days. And so you had personnel from GPL, Ministry of Education's Buildings Department, and you had persons from Public Works Ministry. They went there and they had some assessment and all kinds of things, and they did their report, and they said the school was safe. So they returned on Monday, and Thursday we had a fire at that school. So I'm trying to find out, and anybody on the streets would want to find out what kind of investigation was done. If you declare the school a free zone and safe zone, then how is it that we would have had a fire of that kind of origin to destroy that? You see, the thing is, every time we have a fire at a school, it displaces the children. They are uncomfortable. It displaces every single thing. And more than that, what you have already started, you now have to go and rebuild. When you could have been building on what you have already, you now have to build from scratch. And in that sense, we're losing resources. We're wasting resources. And so I think they should fire all those persons who've been there, because you did not do a thorough job. I am thinking, and we've been, from the Guyana Teachers Union, we've been advocating all the time. Some of these buildings have been there for years. The wiring that we have there, it has been there for years. Why don't the Ministry of Education / the departments of education in every region, why can't we not use the August vacation, the Easter vacation, and the Christmas vacation to go into schools, check to see what is happening with our electrical work, check to see what is happening with the plumbing in the school, check to see what is happening with the building, look for cracks and all these things, leakages in the roof. We don't do that. You know what we do? I was checking last week before school reopened. On Sunday night, Enterprise Primary, Enterprise Nursery, Lodge Secondary, they were now weeding grass and spraying, and children got to turn up there on Monday. And I'm saying this is foolishness. We have a calendar. We know how many weeks we have in the term. We know when schools are going to be closed, when they're going to be reopened. Why can't we not have the kind of manpower to visit these schools? And let me say this, head teachers have been sending in reports of all that is happening in schools. Every month you have to send reports to the Ministry of Education / the Departments of Education. And you state in those reports, the wall on the eastern side, there's a crack. When it rains, water is coming through. The flooring downstairs in the grade 9 classrooms, it's flooding there. The toilets are not working. Every month teachers send these issues in, and people just dilly-dally themselves, let me say that for the want of a better word. And in some instances, we got friends and families and favorites who we give all the contracts to. So you have Tom Jones, and Tom Jones has a contract for 7 schools, while Mary Lane, you're only giving her 1 contract. So Tom Jones got to be running here, there, and everywhere, and all Tom Jones could do is a little bit here, a little dash so, a little dash so, and who is inspecting the work that would have been done by Tom Jones? But Tom Jones submits his report to say, I'm finished with the work and it costs so much, and Tom Jones is being paid. And as a result of that, we have all the kind of foolishness that we got in schools. We got schools that were built, and in 2-3 weeks, a whole lot of dusting on the floor. Because you know what? They do cheap labor, 1, and 2, rather than putting 8 sacks of cement to maybe 2 wheelbarrows of sand, you put 4 sacks of cement. But who's there to observe what is being done? Even though you might have a bill of quantity, who is there to ensure that you use 4 sacks of cement to 1 wheelbarrow of sand? And these are the things that have been continuing in our ministries, in the Ministry of Education, and that's why in many occasions, we have substandard work being done. But Christchurch issue, I'm hoping that very soon we're going to find a school that can house Christchurch, and that we're not going to hear, oh, we're sending some here, we're sending some there, and then the next thing you know, there's no more Christchurch. I'm hoping, even if we have to do shift system, that there will be a building, some school, you'll work with them, and so one would come in the morning, one would come in the afternoon. At this time, while students are preparing for completing SBAs and they're preparing for CSEC, it's a great setback for them, because they now have to go, they're out of school today, they might very well be out of school on Monday and on Tuesday until they have things arranged. During all of this time, contact hours are being lost. Yes, you might send stuff to them via WhatsApp or other means using technology, but the one-to-one and person-to-person interaction is not going to be there. While we are focusing on our CSEC students, we still have the grade 10s and the grade 9s and the grade 8 and the grade 7s. The grade 7s who just got into school. And so we have to at all times be on top of things. So rather than running around all over the place doing foolishness, we should focus on what is important. Looking after our school buildings, checking our electrical system, checking our water system. I mean, you go into some schools and you see toilets can't be flushed. Cleaners or teachers or pupils got to be fetching water from a standpipe outside to come and flush toilets. And in this modern age, I mean, we talk about Guyana being the new Dubai of the Caribbean and fastest growing economy. And you have schools. Don't let me talk yet about throwing water to flush. You got schools that got latrines, and it's very disgusting sometimes. But coming from the level of the Guyana Teachers Union, we will continue to advocate, because like everything else, we have teachers all across this country. We have 42 branches in this country where you have clusters of schools. And so we get the information live and direct every time. The other issue is that we don't have enough manpower in terms of Ministry of Education officials to man all of these schools. So you might very well find, and you have in some, especially in the hinterland, you have schools there that are spread, one in Japan, one somewhere in England, one somewhere in the US, and the other one in Canada. And you have 3 officers. But to get to those schools, it's a whole lot of hours. Sometimes it takes you a day to get to these schools. And then when you as one person, you have to supervise 8 schools and it's stretched that far, how much of your time can you give to them? Not much. And so we have these issues continuing to happen. While we have been asking that in cases of teachers who have done social work, we've been asking that these teachers be transferred into the public service system, or you can use these teachers within their schools, cluster schools around them, and use them as welfare officers, counseling officers. Use them that you have there. The ministry, they still have not seen quite a lot of wisdom in that. And so we'll continue to always have a backlog of work because we don't have manpower to deal with it. Again, let me say it's sad with what has happened at Christchurch, because Christchurch has lots and lots of memories for quite a lot of people. But I'm hoping that the government would be very quick to rebuilding that school. I am positive that that school is not one of the schools slated in the budget for 2023. If it is, then I'll be happy, because I know lots of reports have went in about Christchurch where the entire building, they've recognized that the building is sinking, and so there were plans of having that school rebuilt. If it's in the budget, then I'm happy. And I'm hoping that we're not going to have a contractor who, again, belongs to the 3 Fs, and then we're going to have substandard work being done at Christchurch. Whatever building we are going to put there, it should be a modern building that would set the trend for all the other schools that we have across this country, secondary schools.
Okay, Ms. McDonald, is there anything else you'd like to add to this interview?
Well, I would always want to advocate that parents should allow the teachers to be their best friends as well. Parents should be their children's best friend. And if your child comes home to tell you a story, like sometimes I would call it, you need to find out exactly what the story is. And in many, many instances, you don't just jump with what your child said to you. Because we were all children, and we all went home to tell our parents stories that they wanted to hear, because we wanted to be on the safe side. So parents, be very mindful, and I don't want to say old people, because sometimes people take offense to that, but like our senior folks would say, add a little pinch of salt to what your children come home to tell you. Parents, you are only the guardians for your children when they are at home with you. But in school, they spend 5 hours with their teachers. So the teacher is the second parent for your child. If you develop a relationship with your teachers, and teachers develop a relationship with you, then it's easy for us to talk, discuss issues, disagree with each other, but in the long run, our children's future, or your child's future, is what is important, and that's what we have to work towards. Wider than that, these children are the future leaders of our country, and if we don't inculcate good attitudes into them, good character traits, then we are going to have many more of them in the lockups across this country. The police will shoot them on the streets, and then we'll have many more social ills than we already have. In order to combat these, we've got to become that family that we once used to be, where the home, the school, and the society were playing a part in the development of our children, and we work together. It's going to take us some time, but if we start, we'll get there. In addition to that, teachers, I want to say to teachers, you have a very critical role to play, and that there are times when you'll have to be very, very on your feet in terms of thinking how to react to situations. Yes, there are times when you're pushed over the limit, but I want to admonish you to use as your last resort corporal punishment, and use the guidelines that are there if you have to administer corporal punishment. Let's work to make this nation a better one. Let's work to make our children better children, and in the long run, all of us are going to be happy.
Indeed. Thank you so much, Ms. McDonald. This interview has come to an end. My name is Kimberly Giddings from the Big Smith News Watch, interviewing the General Secretary of the Guyana Teachers Union, Ms. Coretta McDonald.